Revelation 2910. From the 5th of October 1943. Reshaping matter. Dissolving. Course of development. The transformation of matter often requires an infinitely long time, for only when it dissolves does it release the spiritual which is banished within it. Human will can accelerate the dissolution of matter, however only a small part of it is at its disposal, and that is the cover of the spiritual, which does not stand in stubborn resistance against God. God knows about the resistance as well as about its abandonment since eternity, and has also instructed the spiritual to stay where redemption will be given to it according to its will. And this again explains the different composition of the earth's surface and its vegetation, the duration of some creations, the frequent eruptions in certain parts of the country, the possibilities of exploiting earthly treasures, and the different creative power and ability of men. The spiritual, which is willing to give up its resistance and to serve, must always be given the opportunity to dwell in matter in the same proportion, which fulfills a serving purpose. Furthermore, people's will must also be stimulated to produce functional objects out of hard matter. Therefore people must need such objects and accordingly live again in circumstances where they are necessary. There must be a constant balance of forces that want to be active and needs. Matter must therefore be needed for creations of a serving, that is purpose-fulfilling kind. Only then is a perpetual transformation of the outer form of the spiritual possible. However, an immeasurable amount of spiritual is banished in creations in the most solid form as well as in the already more mature plant world, which remains unchanged for an infinitely long time, that is, which only undergoes minimal changes, which does not fulfill a serving purpose which is recognizable to people but which is not without significance for other works of creation and their development. This matter holds the most resistant spiritual and has been destined to be the cover of it since eternity in recognition of its stubbornness. It also undergoes the process of development, only in a slower form. Human hands contribute little to the transformation of such matter, and it is mostly only changed by divine intervention, by natural forces, storms, heat and rain and eruptions, which bring about a dissolving or changing of the outer forms in long periods of time. And that is why earth upheavals have to take place again and again. The earth has to be reshaped in its outer form as well as the spiritual within the earth has to be given the opportunity from time to time to come to the earth's surface in order to be able to start its course of development there. And therefore the earth can never remain unchanged, for it is matter whose final goal is dissolution, which indeed takes eternities but happens again and again in certain periods of time as a compelling necessity, for the spiritual substance is bound in the solid form, which once have to become free in order to be able to develop upwards. And now the spiritual begins its path of earthly life through innumerable external forms, each of which it must overcome through serving activity until the dissolution of this form. And even if thousands of years pass, the process of development on earth will nevertheless come to an end one day, because nothing on earth is permanent, because everything has to change and experiences a change partly through human, partly through divine will. Certain laws must indeed prevail. That is, something may not be unlawfully destroyed, just as the creations which came into being through human hand may not harm the neighbor, otherwise the spiritual in matter will be forced into unkindness, and this will have an effect on the people themselves who caused it to be so active. The will to serve is the beginning of ascent, and the spiritual being must testify to this will again and again by willingly fulfilling its earthly task in every form, which it indeed fulfills in the law of compulsion, but through its willingness to serve it significantly shortens the time of stay in the respective form and can now change it all the faster. The course of development of the spiritual is therefore an endless chain of deformations of the most varied kind, and their willingness of the spiritual in it determines the duration of each individual form. And that is why the whole of creation must change within itself. Nothing can remain as it is, but it must constantly take on new forms. And every form has to fulfill a serving purpose, otherwise the spiritual substance in it cannot mature into the last external form, into the human being, who then has to pass the last test of earthly life in free will in order to be released from every external form and be able to enter the spiritual kingdom as a free being. Amen.